Now, that wouldn't make him CEO. It would just make him chairman.
He
just puts the hairs away after the meetings. Right?
Very good blow-dried hair.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, also, there's a leak. Where did this come from? Was it Variety? Trying to find out. But apparently Warner Media, CNN. CNN obtained an internal memo from CEO John Stankey of Warner Media that they would launch a streaming package that would be based on HBO, but you'd be able to add content from Turner Networks, including CNN, as well as other stuff from the Warner universe like DC.
Are we talking about Quibi?
No. That's a totally different thing. That has nothing to do with this.
Quibi
is just the name for what's her name? Meg
Whitman.
Meg Whitman's co-produced thing. We knew about that startup. We just didn't know its name.
Right,
That's all about short form stuff on your phone. This is a streaming service that would start with HBO and then you could add on Turner. You could add on DC movies. You could add on other stuff.
Owned by AT&T.
Well, Warner Media is owned by AT&T. So
Q4 2019. Well, okay. We got it. We got a year plus. Interesting.
Yeah. Uniqlo cut 90% of staff at one warehouse by replacing them with robots.
What?
Says a headline from Quartz. Quartz is actually pretty reliable.
They're robots in disguise.
Oh.
At night, they transform.
I met a dog the other day at the dog park named Optimus Prime.
Ah.
He's a big, fluffy cloud type of dog. And I was like, oh, like, the Transformers. And the guy was like, what?
No.
I'm like,
no.
He knew. He had to know.
Even people who thought Django was named after Django Unchained were like, no. We know the movie, but that's not what she's named for. He didn't know what Optimus Prime was, or he was just...
Well, he is an older man, and he was like, oh, my son named him.
Okay.
I was like, well, just so you know.
I'm sure he must have heard that before.
It's named after a popular boys' line of toys.
Why is it boys?
Yeah, Roger.
Yeah, maybe it's a popular line of girl toys.
It's a line of toys.
Boy toys.
You have to box it up.
Toys.
It was primarily aimed at boys in the 80s. I take his point.
All right. Fine.
I mean, I'm not saying it was, it's a cool thing to do now, but they were absolutely aiming at boys.
Also, I have to say, wasn't really the right name for this dog. This dog should have been named Cloud or, Fluffy.
Or maybe the abominable.
What's his name? Optimus Prime.
All right. How about we start this show in 45 seconds?
Oh, let's do it.
I like that idea a lot.
Me too.
What we're here for, after all. And by golly, I say we do it.
Solid concept.
And I'll start in 30 seconds by thanking everyone. What do you think of that?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of them apples? Those aren't apples. It's actually a line in there.
Thank them like you mean it.
Those aren't apples. How do you like them apples?
Those aren't apples.
Yeah. Oh, those aren't pillows?
That's what that dog should have been named.
What do you think, Cody?
All right, 5 seconds. 5 seconds, Odie. You ready?
Stay
Here
puff.
we go. 3, 2, 1. Thanks to everyone who supports Daily Tech News Show directly. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, October 10th, 2018 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
And from studio, I don't know why my UPC died or UPS died, but I'm Scott Johnson.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger.
And Roger, too.
Roger.
We have assembled today, as we do every day, in order to help you help each other understand the technology world better. And that's what we're going to do today, including an interesting new trend in distributed restaurant management. Let's start with a few tech things you should know.
The information claims that Apple has reduced the rate of fraud in its Chinese retail stores from 60% of repair claims to 20% over the past 4 years by secretly marking parts, changing repair policies, and improving diagnostic software. Apple noticed that people were stealing phones, swapping out valuable internal parts, and then requesting warranty replacements.
This is why we can't have nice repairs.
Yeah, sneaky Pete over there in China. Microsoft Director of Program Management for Windows Servicing and Delivery, John Cable, says the company has fixed all known issues with Windows 10 or Windows 10's October 2018 update that caused fewer than 1% of users to see data deleted. He's Cable Management, I just realized. That's a terrible joke, but I just wanted to get it out there. Anyway, the update is now being released to Windows insiders. In addition, Microsoft is joining the Open Invention Network, which exists to protect open source tech from patent lawsuits. Microsoft will not only defend Linux now, but will contribute 60,000 patents to the consortium, allowing members to cross-license them.
My, things have changed. WhatsApp has patched a memory corruption bug in its Android and iOS apps that could let an attacker take over the application if the target answered an incoming video call. Natalie Silvanovich from Google's Project Zero security research team discovered the vulnerability at the end of August, informed responsibly. WhatsApp fixed it, and now they're making it public. There's no evidence that the vulnerability was ever exploited. Well, let's talk a little bit more about my phone, or the people who make my phone, or one of my phones. Let's talk about the Essentials, Scott.
The Essential phone. Bloomberg sources say Andy Rubin's Essential is working on a phone that can book appointments and respond to emails and texts on behalf of its users. Your own little personal robot. Company has canceled the smartphone and paused development on a smart speaker to focus on this new feature. It would run on a phone with a small screen that is meant to be controlled by voice.
I mean, this would be amazing to me if we hadn't just talked about Google's hardware event yesterday, where Google kind of already did this.
Well, I mean, they didn't do this, but it definitely takes the wind out of the sails, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Where it's like, oh, so it'll do a little bit more than that thing Google announced yesterday. Like, I get what Essential's up to, which is to say, one of the criticisms of the Essential phone was that it was a great phone. In other words, kind of like every other phone out there. It didn't have anything that really set it apart. The modular system was supposed to be that thing, and modular systems have just not played no matter who's done them, Motorola, Essential, or otherwise. So this is their attempt to say, what can we do to bring phones to the next step? Oh, I know what it is. We'll use the Smart Assistant part of them. But like you said, Sarah, like the longer they take to develop this, the less far in front of the other models they're going to be.
Well, and of course, Andy Rubin coming from Android, it's you can't deny the fact that there were probably things in the works when he was at Google that are coming to the Essential phone as well.
That stuff takes time.
Yeah.
I think it's exciting because sure, it takes the wind out of their sails a little bit from the announcement yesterday, but a leaning into this idea of these devices autonomously taking care of some tasks for us is absolutely a direction I think is rad, and I hope we see more like this coming from everybody, Apple and everybody included. It'd be really cool if my phone did all the stuff I hate for me.
I don't know why you have to make it a smaller screen. I'm curious if there's a good reason. There might be, but it seems like it would be more popular if it's like, hey, it's still got full functionality of the screen if you want it, but also you don't have to use it.
Well, Tom, it's essential. Say they only give the essential screen space.
You only need, we give you the screen you need, just the essential.
Well, speaking of Essential, Tom, I know this was a phone that you were, kind of trying out, but is this something that you use regularly?
What? This isn't a feature that's in my phone. This is a feature they're developing.
No, I'm just talking about the Essential phone.
Oh yeah, no, I love the Essential phone. It's great.
Yeah. All right.
You find it essential?
Maybe not.
Okay.
Well, maybe you'll find this essential. Snapchat unveiled 12 original video shows, including the platform's first scripted programs from top producers like Keeping Up with the Kardashians creator Boona Murray. Also did all of the real world if you know reality shows, you know them. And Friday Night Lights writer Carter Harris. Snapchat Originals will appear in the Discover tab with an upcoming dedicated session for shows, as well as a permanent show profile pages available through Snapchat search.
Why not? I mean, everyone else is getting into the content game. Why not Snap? I don't know how I feel about I mean, they haven't outright said this, but I don't know how I feel about portrait-based content.
That's the issue you have?
Well, part of it is that. Part of it is like, how long are these? Probably not very long. That's okay. I don't want them to be too long is the point. Take advantage of the strengths of the platform, which is this quick Snapchat kind of experience. Move that into your content deals and see what comes out of it. I think animated shorts would be really cool in this format. I have some other ideas, but clearly they're heading down a very specific sort of reality TV road with this. A little bit of scripted television, maybe, but I don't know. Do you want it, Tom? Do you want?
No, I may be entirely wrong about this, but I feel like what's happening is everybody sees YouTube and says, "Oh, kids love short form video on mobile. We'll do that. Go 90." What was the one that was trying to steal all the YouTubers, but then locked you in with a pay program?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Don't even remember.
It's so long ago now. I've forgotten the name.
Vessel.
Thank you. The mistake all of these make is YouTube is successful because anybody can put their stuff on it. NBC, the person in their garage, us on DTNS, and all of these try to overcome that by saying, "Oh, but we'll pay really high quality directors and personalities and really popular people like the Kardashians, and that'll bring people over." And that's not why it works. And I think that all of these attempts will fail because they focus on that instead of the fact that it's convenience. Like, oh, I want to watch that thing from Jimmy Kimmel last night. Oh, and then there's also this other recommended video. Oh, you mean a Game of Thrones conspiracy theory? Great, I'll look at that. That's what makes it work. And I don't think any of these have replicated that.
Yeah. You can see why they get excited about it, though, right? I mean, Sarah, you like some trash. Sorry, not trashy. I don't mean it in the most pejorative way, but you like some.
No, I like my trash TV, and you know what I like? I like it on a big screen.
Right.
So can this be? Like, do I mirror this to my television? Like, I don't like the idea of watching anything on Snapchat on my phone. Like, that's not the way that I consume content ever.
Yeah.
You watch things on your phone because they're either built for the phone, low quality, or you're like, I want to see the clip from last night's show, and I don't have time to watch the whole show.
Right.
Yeah.
Not a show that exists there natively so much.
Exactly.
Yeah. Scientists at the University of Washington have developed a way for 3D printed plastic objects to transmit data without using batteries or electronics. We've actually talked about this before on the show. I know a bunch of you, including myself, have had a hard time wrapping our heads around how this works. But the team created antennas that can reflect ambient Wi-Fi. So in other words, the way the plastic bends or the gear shifts changes the way Wi-Fi is reflected, and then they can sense that. And the way it's reflected can be modulated by the plastic so that it could be a 0 or a 1. Anyway, the team has created antennas that can work, say, in a pill bottle, so you can tell if it's open or closed, or in a prosthetic hand, so you can tell what position it's in. For situations without Wi-Fi, they've now developed a spring and ratchet that can record by ratcheting up the situations, the opens, the closes, and then be released when Wi-Fi is present again to transmit through the antennas. The team wants to make the system smaller so it can actually be embedded in a pill bottle or a prosthetic or an insulin pen, for example. And they'll present their work this month at the ACM Symposium on User Interface Software and Technology.
Love everything about this. This is such a cool step forward potentially for how we communicate with stuff that normally can't or would need power or batteries to do it, like they said. So the idea that I could be wearing a prosthetic one day when I lose a leg, or let's say if that ever happened, the idea that it could communicate remotely without me having to worry about it being charged or having, electronic stuff so embedded into my leg. I love this idea. This feels like a huge step forward for this technology.
Did I take my pills? Is a serious question for people.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I take a levothyroxine every morning, and when I take it, I turn the pill bottle over because if I go back to sleep, I want to be able to remember that I took it. And that's me at 48. When I get to be 70, I'm going to want this thing here.
Yeah.
When I read the story this morning, I was like, oh, I get it. But okay, let's say you don't have pill bottle issues. How else would this technology be super convenient? I was kind of racking my brain. trying to think
Listen,
of
every scientific advance. If that's the question you ask, you're going to have a hard time, right? There's always the things that they've decided to do, prosthetic limbs in this case, insulin pen, and it's the people who get a hold of this once it's out and available for everyone to try that'll come up with the answer to that. However, I would like to throw it to the audience. If anybody's like, actually, I know what this could be used for. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com.
Maybe you left a button on, maybe you left the TV on, or maybe you left something on at home. I know that's electronic and you can do it with your phone now, but let's forget about that.
Huh. Interesting.
So like a little, the TV switch is turned to the left. I guess we don't have those anymore, but the regular, is the fridge closed? There, I got one for you.
Right. Yeah, because you leave the fridge open all the time.
My fridge has an alarm if I leave
my
it
fridge open or closed. I forget.
Well, I'll tell you what.
It's a thing that happens. There are fridge alarms for that very case. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Well, speaking of things that are now closed or sort of closed, Microsoft has removed Minecraft, which they currently own now, if you have been under a rock for a while, from the Apple TV store specifically, and discontinued support as of September 24th. A pop-up when you launch the app says, quote, "We need to reallocate resources to platforms that our players use the most." Kind of rude. You can continue to play the game if you already have it, but Microsoft is also offering refunds if you bought the app or anything in the app within the last 90 days. And I wanted to put this in the top stories today because, and this is another one we could put out to listeners. Maybe you guys can help me answer this question. I understand it's not going to be even close to the number one platform for people playing Minecraft, but I don't understand how this is any skin off Microsoft's nose to have it on as many platforms as possible. They're not pulling it from iOS, so you'll still be able to play your iPad and your iPhone versions and buy those versions. So I just don't understand, given that it's the same code base, they're universal apps, it's not a big deal. Why don't you just leave it there?
Well, I mean, think about it. If you want to AirPlay something from your iPhone to the Apple TV, Apple has or Microsoft has probably realized that there weren't that many people using the Apple TV app, and you can still enjoy the game using your Apple TV.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. Soon you won't be able to buy it, though. I don't know. It just seems weird. The whole goal of Minecraft.
But you're buying it via iOS, and then you're just AirPlaying it.
Well, yes, you could do that. I guess in theory you could do that. How would you control it, though? I don't know.
Control it on your phone.
You use your phone as the remote.
Yeah, I guess you could play with the phone as a remote. You get a MiFi controller, and it would all still work. So that's all true. They pioneered with Minecraft, in my opinion, this more modern idea of this is everywhere all the time. Get it wherever you're at, no matter what platform it is. Now, technically, that was Mojang before Microsoft bought it, and they said, well, we'll carry that kind of thinking through, and we'll just have it everywhere, regardless of platform. I'm not sad that it won't be there. I don't even play it there. I don't really play it at all, but I just don't understand why having it there is a problem for them. It just seemed like not that big a deal.
I mean, maybe that's the answer is you didn't play it there. Nobody played it there. And even the small amount of maintenance.
Less it's a problem, more that they just didn't want to dedicate the resources to keeping updating it.
I'd be curious what those resources were, I guess.
Yeah, if you've got insight into this, maybe you've been in a similar situation at a company you work for, or you can be anonymous and tell us from inside an actual company that does this. Email us, feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We'd love to know.
Danish newspaper Borsen reports that Apple acquired a Danish visual effects startup in December, but didn't disclose the purchase. Spectral, as it's known, trains machine learning algorithms to cut a person out of video as if they were on a green screen without the need of recording them in front of that said green screen. Spectral advertises that it can do real-time mixed reality, something that Apple has been working on with its AR kit as well.
So this exists in a couple of webcams for streamers, gamers mainly, who don't want to go through the expense, trouble, and lighting and all that to put a green screen behind them. They buy a certain kind of camera, and it does an okay job of saying, well, this is you, and anything in the background now we're gonna green out, and now that will make it so you're a transparent overlay on your streams. And then you look at what Apple's already doing with the iPhone and with their current camera and their all this bokeh work and everything else they're doing, where foreground objects are eliminated or at least somehow edited separately from background elements. This makes perfect sense to me that they would try to come up with a way to do that. Now, how fun this would be, and if it's just for stickers for me to send Tom a GIF of me dancing in front of the Taj Mahal, that's probably all this is.
Oh, well, it's for AR. It's for the ability to have an AR experience. Right now, you can only do it in the phone, but imagine they had a headset, and when you look at the person next to you, you see that person playing the game with you, but everything else around them is the AR experience, and it can track them in real time as if they're green screen.
Yeah, so that's a cool use case. I think this is really nifty technology, just generally speaking. The webcams have been okay. They're not great. Some of them look okay. So I don't know. We'll see what they do with it. It seems like an interesting acquisition regardless.
Yeah. Well, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com and feed your brain. All right. I kept waiting for somebody to play that. Somebody was me. Earlier this week, Jonathan Scheiber at TechCrunch wrote an article titled, "The Next Big Restaurant Chain May Not Own Any Kitchens," which is kind of confusing because it's all about kitchens. It's that the restaurant chain itself wouldn't own the kitchen. What this story is about is the fact that UBS, the analyst company, projects food delivery will grow from $35 billion to $365 billion by 2030. And so there's an opportunity for both new restaurants and existing restaurants to create a sort of, not exactly a cloud service, but like a data center for kitchens. So a network of shared kitchens, storage facilities, pickup counters, ways to reduce the overhead so that you could try out new concepts or add in more delivery capacity without having to go through the problems of real estate and acquisition and maintenance to open a new physical restaurant just to add delivery capacity. So there's a few examples cited in this. Kitchen United is the one they spend the most time talking about. It's in Pasadena, California, marketed to existing restaurants looking to expand. Their chief development officer, Meredith Sandland, their chief operating officer is Meredith Sandland. She used to be chief development officer at Taco Bell. And their chief business officer is Atul Sood, who used to be at McDonald's and was the guy who hooked up McDonald's with delivery services. They've opened a 12,000 square foot facility in Pasadena. They have plans to expand to other parts of LA, New Jersey, Atlanta, Ohio, Phoenix, Seattle, Denver. And what they do is they take a warehouse or an old big box retail store or maybe a light industrial location, and they fill it with 10 to 20 restaurants. So they give you the counters, the refrigeration, the ovens, everything you need. And then you just rent that. And they provide labor management, menu management, marketing and promotions, one-stop setup with the delivery channels. They have reserved parking spaces for delivery people when they come up to get an order to take it away, as well as back-of-house services so that you just focus on creating your food, training your staff, and filling orders. Cantor's Deli, which is famous here in Los Angeles, is part of this. An Iowa chain called the Lost Cuban Kitchen now has an LA presence for the first time through this. There's also other versions of this. Cloud Kitchens does this. Pilot Works kind of focuses more on new food entrepreneurs and acts a little bit like a co-working space for restaurants. And Momofuku chef David Chang has tried this a couple of times. Maple was shut down and sold to Deliveroo, but Ondo was acquired by Uber Eats. So this is a trend that is happening. And Scott, I know this fascinated you, this idea that we might shift to fewer dine-in locations, but have more delivery options because of this.
Yeah, it's this idea of shared infrastructure that is super fascinating to me, given that we've overcome a lot of ideas in recent years about what's cool to share or isn't, be it ride sharing or the idea that somebody in their car is just going to pick us up and take us to the airport. Like, that was a really weird idea before Uber and Lyft, and now we just sort of don't even blink at it. This feels like the natural progression for brick and mortar to move toward. And it reminded me when I was a kid, I wanted to be a political cartoonist. That's all I really wanted to do. And I would visit our two local papers, the Salt Lake Tribune and the Deseret News. And when I was a kid, at some point, they said, you know what, this is dumb, having two places to print everything and two places to do distribution and all that happens in between. This is well before anything digital was happening. Let's combine those forces and have one place that prints both papers every day. We're still competing editorially. We're still competing.
They did this in St. Louis too, I think.
Yeah. And so I think that's probably true a lot, in most of the country. It makes perfect sense, although it's taken a while, for the restaurant business to go this way. And I could even see a situation where if it was more of a half and half dine in, dine out kind of situation, having, let's say, 4 restaurants on the same block, all using the same infrastructure service of kitchens, you could just do this seamlessly. It would be nothing to the patrons. They just get the food.
And a couple of these that I looked at market to food trucks, which you're like, well, why would a food truck need this? But a lot of times there's prep done in a location before it's put on the food truck. So the food truck just finishes off the service, things like chopping up the vegetables or pre-cooking items can be done at scale. And maybe you've got 3 or 4 food trucks that you then take from that one location. So this works for that. It could work for physical locations like you're saying as well. And it's not just delivery, it's also pickup. So at the Canner's Deli, Roger, I think you're probably the closest of us. You could actually go call in an order at this warehouse and then drive up to it and pick up Canner's Deli without having to go all the way to actual Canner's Deli in the middle of town, which is an hour drive.
That would be great. What's interesting is that this is something that institutions have been doing for a while, especially school districts, because it used to be that at least when I went to school, all the schools I went to had their own kitchen. They had their own kitchen. They had their own ovens and stuff. And in California, there was, cutbacks in education. One of the things they decided to do is basically, we're going to cook everything in this one kitchen, and then we're going to take the food and we're going to ship it out to the various schools. That way we can still supply the same menu items, but now we don't need to pay for the additional staff to run the onions, the stoves or whatever. And we could cook it all in one place. We can ensure quality because, it's all made by the same people. I mean, it's very interesting because in many ways, this is a parallel to what you see with chip fabrication, right? You have a separation between we design the chips and we make the chips in house too. We design the chips. We're going to find the lowest, the cheapest or the most efficient producer that can produce our designs, and we'll hire them. I mean, AMD split off its global foundries from its business because it was just cheaper to focus on developing the chips, and rather than we've run out of chips to make, we're going to have all these factories idling. How do we keep things humming along? And in some cases, kind of what Intel's facing right now. It's like, well, we got to make sure that we're constantly supplying these things that we're paying for for power and all this stuff. Makes sense to do it with food.
Well, and, not that we all don't like going to our favorite pizza place, that has like cool ambiance and great music and all that stuff. But we all know that restaurant that closed down where it's like, why did they close down? It was super popular. Well, the lease became too expensive or whatever. It's hard to have a business where people go and eat your food. However, I, also talk about, loving my ramen place. I never go to the ramen place. There is a place that I could go and sit, but I just order it because I've become used to that. So if there was no physical place that the ramen, was made, but it was in a warehouse such as this, and it was more cost effective for the company to run it, that wouldn't matter to me because I'm ordering it anyway.
I mean, I was about to say, back in Revision 3, in that building the company was located at, there was also a couple of, what do you call it? You order food for a wedding or whatever. Catering. And there was a caterer that would serve lunch. Like, hey, we do catering, but, we have all these extras. We'll serve it for lunch. You go into the back, they lift up the door, and you just buy it, and you go back to your desk.
Sure.
Yeah, no, this is a industrialized, data optimized version of that, basically. Although, again, they're saying we'll rent you the kitchen. It's flexible. You'll have 4 walls around your kitchen. You'll have your own access and everything, but we'll manage all the other stuff you need there. And there was another story we considered talking about today. BBC had a very rosy picture of how self-driving cars are going to eliminate car ownership in the next 10 years, which I'm not sure I agree with, but we've talked about that before. But one thing I think will happen is if self-driving cars do catch on, it will lower the cost of delivery, which if this lowers the cost of the food preparation and it lowers the cost of the delivery, now that $380 billion starts to sound right. In a lot of cases, the only reason I don't do delivery is because of the cost, the extra charge. And if that charge comes down to near nothing, or for a restaurant that's done purely for delivery is actually beneficial, then I'm gonna have delivery done more often.
I mean,
and on the flip side, if you are, if you have the best pizza crust known to man, but for whatever reason you just, you haven't ever found that storefront, this is a great opportunity for people who make really good food to offer food to the rest of us.
Yeah, and maybe you eventually have a storefront, but that's just sort of a lost leader to get your name out there, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
To me, it's no different than businesses, contracting out their mail services or secretarial services or whatever it is at whatever level you're at. And this just, I think, is a totally brilliant idea. And that pizza place that Sarah refers to, that every town's had and we all wish was still there, could still be there. They just have to do the front, and the back gets taken care of because the spaghetti place on the corner and the sandwich place on the other side are all help subsidizing it. It's just
and as I don't know, I mean, some of us, I hide from the world, so I order a lot of food from to my house. But as that becomes more and more mainstream, the idea that, I like this place, I don't have to go there, I'll just get it delivered, and the price comes down, potentially, as Tom mentioned. I think that that is a market that will become more and more like Amazon, but for food.
Yeah. Good. Mark my words. We're going to start hearing stories about how delivery is killing physical restaurants and will eliminate physical restaurants. And what do we need to do to save the physical restaurant within
killing the towns? Killing the towns. You know who doesn't kill towns? People in our subreddit. Thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories, and thanks to everybody who does. You help us make our job better every day. Vote on them as well at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. If you want to hang out on Facebook, does the same thing. Facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow is the URL.
Let's check out the mailbag. What are people emailing us?
Well, we got quite a bit of responses for our discussion yesterday about the Google Pixel and Google's event in general. And Patrick Beja and I were both a little lukewarm about it. So Kawa Lau says, I love DTNS, but I wish they'd invite a guest that knows a little bit more about Google products for a show like today. Again, this is yesterday's show. They're all loyal iOS users who know very little about Android. Other than Tom defending the slate, the rest of the hosts didn't really care about the products. Now, Jeremy added, agreed. For one of the most anticipated launches of the year, I felt like the reaction and discussion was pretty ho-hum. Hopefully, there'll be more discussion in the coming days.
Yeah, well, first of all, I am not a loyal iOS user. I use Android on the Pixel C, on the Chromebook, on my Essential phone. I use iOS on an iPad and an iPhone. I'm not loyal to anything. This idea that you have to be loyal to something bothers me. And I defended the slate, but I also was enthusiastic about the Pixel 3 phones, as was Sarah. Sarah liked stuff about the phones. Why do you think this is? And I say these not necessarily to be defensive, but to say, and yet, even with all of that, we got some folks who were like, "Oh, you obviously don't like Android." And why do you think that is?
Well, and I definitely understand both Kawa and Jeremy's notes, because Patrick and I both sort of said like, you gonna buy this now? Are you gonna buy this now?
And I think that's it. I think you're right, because the reaction of the user at that point, the listener, is well, of course not. They're Apple fans.
Exactly. And it's true. I just bought a phone. So, I'm not in the market. But if I were, I thought that it was a very, very, very nice phone. Both of the models in particular. And I do think that when somebody tends to kind of, be beholden to a certain ecosystem, sometimes it can rub people the wrong way. Like, well, you're just never going to you're never going to like this phone because you're an iPhone person. Well, I am, but it's not because I don't like the phone.
No, in fact, every time there's a new Pixel, I get excited because I go, this could be the one, this could be the one, and I get all excited. And then I read that Ars Technica first impressions thing, and it freaked me out. I went,
now, hold on, Scott. You're an Apple fan too, so nothing you say matters either.
You did it.
Let's go to Roger Chang, who doesn't use iOS devices. Roger, how did you feel about these Google announcements?
It's funny because for most of those events, I'm not a big a smart speaker user, and I do like the Android phones. I'm not a flagship phone kind of guy. I don't like, Halo phone I need to have. I'm one of those really kind of value added kind of guys where, hey, what's the best phone you have that won't cost me an arm and a leg? And generally it's somewhere along the Samsung, LG line. And it's funny because I used to love, like, I had a Nexus 3. That was the best phone in the world. But Android's actually they're very good at optimizing for different hardware levels. So I'm keeping my Galaxy S6 for probably another 2 to 3 years unless I break it, because it does everything I need it to, and it doesn't. It's pretty solid.
Well, I will say that thank you to Kawa and Jeremy, and I think Ryan, Creative Vast Arts, also weighed in on this conversation on Patreon as well. We will take this into account, and we'll make sure, if nothing else, we make sure to turn to Roger in Android announcements like that to get the perspective of someone who just lives in that universe as well. I try to live in all of them myself, just so I have a little bit of conversancy with it.
Yeah, point taken, everybody. Thanks for keeping us honest. Also, thanks to Scott Johnson for keeping us honest every Wednesday. Scott, what has been going on in your world?
Well, I'm not sure that was on it. Just kidding. All kinds of cool stuff. Things are ramping up for BlizzCon this year. That happens in a mere couple of weeks, and so that's a big focus of mine right now. But if you want to kind of follow what's happening with me, catch any of my shows, or otherwise track me down, I'm over at frogpants.com, and I am Scott Johnson on Twitter. And thanks for
what about that show you're co-hosting with Patrick Beja at dailytechnewsshow.com/MVGB though?
Oh yeah, the monthly video game briefing, as we call it in long form, is something I'm doing with Patrick now. Every month at the first of the month, we basically take the biggest gaming stories of that month. Patrick and I are both avid gamers, and we put together a show that is designed specifically for the DTNS audience. We'd love other people as well, but we think of them when we make it. And the reason we do that, it doesn't mean we're dumbing it down or whatever, but we're looking at it at a perspective, or from the perspective of the technology in a lot of cases, what the industry is actually doing when they make a move like that. We're not really reviewing games so much as we are talking about the broader picture. And I think if you have even a passing interest in that industry or in the games of business, or the business of games, you want to check it out. It's awesome.
dailytechnewsshow.com/MVGB. Now, if you'd like to know what equipment I do use when I make my show, just put up a new list at dailytechnewsshow.com/about. Click on the link that says "See Equipment Tom Uses." That's dailytechnewsshow.com/about. And dailytechnewsshow.com working overtime for you. Rich Stroffolino has a comparison up of the Pixel Slate, the Surface, and iPads, and his rant about why none of these have enough storage. If you want more content like this, if you want more shows like MVGB, if you want to see more of the things like my equipment, keep us on the air by helping us out at patreon.com/DTNS.
We also want your feedback. Our email address is a great way to do it. Feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com is our URL. We're live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC. And you can find out more and tell a friend at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Back tomorrow with Justin Robert Young. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Maybe that's what we should do. We should start a DTNS kitchen.
Oh, hey, we can share.
I've always had the sort of
delivered.
the fantasy of having like a coffee shop / wine bar. But like, where is it going to be, and what's it going to look like, and all that stuff?
It seems like a collision of two different eating, drinking styles, right?
Well,
No,
the idea is
absolutely not.
the idea is in the morning you drink coffee, and somewhere around, I don't know, like maybe 3 or 4 p.m. it kind of changes over.
It's called a cafe. And
It's called a cafe. Perhaps
love
you've heard of
them.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, there was one in Austin called Les Amis. It was a cab driver who was French who ran it. And it was open not 24 hours, but it was open really early and really late. So you could always go there and get any kind of coffee, had lattes and everything. Had a limited menu of peasant food, basically,
Sure.
like
Flatbreads
and
and
black beans and cheese and stuff.
Yeah.
And then he had wine and beer. And you just kind of like whatever you were in the mood for, that was your thing. And I loved that place so much.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, I love the idea of being like, it'll be like the cutest place ever. So much great light. People come and we'll play records and all that stuff. However, I could still do it. And it's actually more advantageous if I just had like really good wine that people could order. And, I was, part of a kitchen that maybe I was sharing with other companies as well. So there was very little overhead for me, or a lot less.
I've always wanted to do some kind of bookstore / coffee shop pub kind of thing.
Oh, me too.
That's when I registered frogpants.com back in 2002. The plan was a coffee shop fantasy bookstore. That was the idea.
Yeah.
And then I gave up on that and made it my company name.
There was in San Francisco. There was a coffee shop / comic book store.
Oh yeah, there's been a lot of didn't Meltdown have like a little snack bar coffee shop? There's also Borderlands used to. I think in its new location it doesn't anymore, but it had a great coffee and tea shop with pastries right next door.
Pages when I think coffee shop, I think diner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, coffee shop. The old term for coffee shop is similar with diner versus cafe.
Because my parents ran one, Smitty's Coffee Shop. It was a restaurant.
I'm gonna miss my local coffee shop. I love that place.
Oh yeah,
it's just not gonna be something that I go to.
I don't know, man. I
on the
finally
other side of town.
I don't want to say too much, but I finally found a place that I can just go anytime. Now, Eileen doesn't feel the same way. So like last night, I was like, well, we'll just go there. And she's like, nah, I don't know. But I've eaten at this place because it's got pie and a big menu and it serves beer and coffee.
I bet I know the place.
Oh, you've been there. Yes. You've been there with me. I've eaten there like 6 times in the past 2 weeks.
And Eileen's over it already.
Yeah. Well, because it's not high quality. So she's like, well, try other things.
But it's consistent.
Exactly.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like where you go after a long day of work and you just don't want to cook.
And really, that's the thing. She's like, well, I just want to get something to go and bring it home. I'm like, all right, well, that's fair. She had to drive all the way back from Beverly Hills. So.
We used Uber Eats one night for McDonald's just so we could say we did it.
I've done that.
I've done that.
Oh, good. I don't feel as bad now.
I did it. I was sick.
I didn't.
I was like,
great, but I did it.
I was sick and I wanted ice cream. And the only ice cream that was deliverable in a reasonable amount of time was from McDonald's. Yeah. So I got chicken McNuggets and sundaes and a cherry pie. The McDonald's cherry pie, mind you.
Well, the McDonald's that's closest to me is not like right around the corner, but a 5-minute drive.
And you still had it delivered?
Because I didn't. There was something about it because I wanted McNuggets really bad, but I didn't want to go. I just didn't want to be a part of the whole experience. I just wanted it to come to me and not have to like go through a drive-through. Like I wasn't gonna sit in the McDonald's, and I didn't want to go through the drive-through for whatever reason.
Sad that no actual chicken was in the nuggets.
Well, who knows? They were delicious, but
it's real chicken.
They redid the recipe.
It allowed me to not have any FaceTime with a human besides the person that was dropping off the McNuggets to me.
And when I was sick, that was kind of the same thing too, because my McDonald's was really not.
You just don't want to be in public, and you just want.
McDonald's is like last resort for me. Like if everything's closed, I'll hit Jollibee's before I hit McDonald's.
I mean,
not everyone has a Jollibee near them.
I'm telling you, the McNuggets
sorry.
feel good.
Well, it's kind of weird. Jollibee has a weird place at least in my area. Because
I wish we had Jollibee near us.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like their peanut bit.
I don't even know what Jollibee is.
It's the McDonald's of the Philippines.
Oh, okay.
So they have fried chicken and burgers and peanut bit.
Chicken joy.
Lumpia.
Their lumpia is so greasy, though.
It's really greasy. Yeah, Eileen doesn't even like that.
KAAS, KAAS, Kitchen as a Service.
I like kitchen as a service. We can do kitchen as a service.
Yeah.
Go with that. I'll put KAAS in parentheses, like what, before it?
Yeah. KAAS Elliott, Mamas and the Papas.
Died on a chicken bone, which I think is
she died from a ham sandwich. She didn't die from that.
Well, she died.
She did not die from the ham sandwich either.
She died from choking. She died from a standard ailment.
I know. Poor Mama Cass, thrown under the bus on that one.
Make your own kind of music. It's my favorite Mama Cass.
Well, it was always sort of a thing where it was like, well, you don't eat your food too fast. Mama Cass died that way.
Really? Oh my gosh, my parents.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
they don't eat your food too fast.
That's like, and that's like the ultimate urban legend.
Yeah.
Totally right. But as it's sort of like, don't go swimming after you have lunch. It's like, what's gonna happen?
We were always
Supposing you'll cramp up.
finish your food.
But did anyone ever cramp up? No. Yeah. Yes.
Well, the
Children
idea
are
was
starving,
like
finish your food.
if you snacked on a hot dog, it was fine. But if you just like ate a 4-course meal, you probably shouldn't go in the pool swimming. Kind of thing.
That's just common sense.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was.
And if you like common sense, folks, you should back us on Patreon and be able to listen to Good Day Internet either live in the Discord or on demand from Patreon because we're wrapping up the video now. But audio listeners, stick around. There's more to come.
Mm-hmm.